Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Birth to Me podcast. This is going to be women's journeys throughout pregnancy and birth. We will be discussing infertility, treatments, and different types of births such as C-sections or natural births. If that is something that might be a trigger to you, feel free to see the title at the beginning, and we will always list what it's about. So if that's something that you are uncomfortable with, feel free to exit and join us at another episode. I hope you're doing well today, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Sit back and enjoy this special story from one of our friends. It says it really. I want to thank you so much for being with me today. I've been anticipating hearing about your journey and how God's worked for you, and so you can share with other women how God has moved for you in your life, and that's a blessing to me just to hear little tidbits. So I'm really excited to have you today and to hear your story.
I'm so excited to share it. And I have to tell you, I would go through it all again. And I know a lot of people, they're like, why would you want to go through infertility and the things that you went through? But honestly, because I have a perspective now of what others go through.
Mm-hmm.
And, God really does take what the enemy meant for evil and turns it into good. And now
Yes.
I can not just sympathize for somebody, but I can actually have empathy for them because I've been there. And so I can talk one on one with them and they'll know, like, I know exactly what you're going through. So yeah, no, I'm excited to share my story. I guess really I just need to start from the beginning and
Yeah,
go
that's
from there.
perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
So when me and John got married, we got married 2012. Before we even got married, we knew we wanted kids. And, everybody's like, you need to wait a year or two or more or three, 10. We had all
Uh-huh.
these opinions going on, but we knew deep down that we really wanted to have children.
Yeah.
So we didn't necessarily like track my cycle and do all that, but we didn't prevent it. We did not, I was not on any kind of birth control. We didn't use anything to stop it from happening. So, we didn't really think much about it, but we just, you're a brand new married couple. So you're just doing your thing. And I guess it was about a year in, I started to realize, like, hey, I'm not pregnant yet, like, this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of weird. So I started looking up, like, when should a couple become pregnant? And there was very various, opinions. Some people may take 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Typically after the 2 year mark, some people say 1 year mark, you should seek advice, medical advice. But some of the things that I were coming across said it could take up to 2 years. So I still wasn't too worried yet.
Yeah.
So I started tracking my cycle, tracking ovulation and all that, and just really trying to, become in tune with my body. Because I think that is important for you to know, how does your body work, because I
Yeah.
had really never thought about it before. So 2 years goes by, nothing. I start to really worry at that point, that something's up. At that point, we were moving back and forth between Louisiana and Georgia. I mean, we moved back and forth so many times. I can't even get into all that and tell you how many times we did
Yeah.
that. But we
I
really were just
I
starting.
remember y'all did move, and I remember talking a little bit then. So I know that had to be a little bit stressful too, on top of all that.
It was, and we were really starting off, like, he had not started he's in auto glass. He has kind of put a pause on that for now, but that's what he does. So he had just started getting into that. I still to this day, I just do, like, I clean houses. I didn't go to college, or I did go to college for a year, but I never pursued a career or anything like that. So we were basically starting off with nothing. I mean, and honestly, it was the best thing God ever did. We started in this little tiny camper, worked our way up, bought a trailer that
Mm-hmm.
literally had to gut the whole thing and redo it. So God's bringing us through this process while I'm going through, trying to figure out, why am I not getting pregnant? Well, we don't have money to pay for a doctor or anything like
Right.
that. So I think it was 2014, the end of 2014, we finally saved up enough money to go and see, a doctor, for a gynecologist for me. I did not have insurance. So she ran all these tests, and she said it looked like by the ultrasound she did, because you can't really tell 100% what
Yeah.
stage you're at, but she could tell that I had endometriosis from what she could see.
Uh-huh.
So we knew that. And then he went to a doctor. I don't want to say it was an actual infertility doctor. I don't really remember,
Mm-hmm.
but I know we had to get a sample from him and take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at a salon, and I'll never forget the day I got a phone call from the lab person or the doctor, whoever called me, and told me that essentially he had like no good sperm at all. They were either swimming backwards or like doing weird things. The way they explained it, like it was not good. So my heart sank, and I'm like, okay, so not only do I have endometriosis, he's got something wrong with him too.
And I'm
So
sure that was
I think
hard because you're young at this point. What are you, 21,
22, I think.
22?
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we kind of had to put that on the back burner. We just gave it to God. God had given me signs and even dreams of even LeVay. Like he gave me a dream of LeVay on this driveway. This is my parents' old house that we live in now,
Mm-hmm.
but her on John's shoulders at about 4 or 5 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, walking down this driveway. Now, when I had that dream, we were living in Louisiana.
That's beautiful.
Never thought that I would live in this house. Like, never thought I would take over my parents' house my
Yeah.
whole life. Like, never thought that. So that dream was something that I held on to because I knew I was going to have a baby one day. Like, God had showed me that. So we kept pushing through, and we wound up moving back here, the beginning of 2015. And we had come back. We had sold our trailer, so we came back with $10,000. And my mom and dad said that we could live with them for a little while, that way we could keep saving because I really wanted to go to an infertility doctor. And I had heard really good things about Dr. Murray in Chattanooga with
Uh-huh.
Tennessee Reproductive Medicine, TRM is what it's called. And so that was a blessing for my parents to even allow us to do that because $10,000, if we would have had to rent somewhere, that would have been gone.
Yeah.
So we went to him. He actually he did the scans and everything, and I had stage 3 endometriosis.
Wow.
Um, did all the retested John and said yes. I want to remember what the words are, but I really can't. I think it's like motility or I don't remember. There's like some words that he
Yeah.
said that
About the
like
direction.
yes, well,
Yeah.
it just explains like the health of your sperm or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So he told me the best course of action was to clean me out, do a ablation. I think it's what it's called. They
So
pretty
get
much
all
just
the tissue off.
yes, just clean
Ooh.
you completely out and start over. And he wanted to put John on medicine.
Hmm.
And I don't remember what that medicine is.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but whatever this medicine was, it made him super strong. It was like testosterone and
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It gave him some wild side effects. So he put him on that medicine. I think this was a month before I had my surgery. He had been taking that medicine a month. I had my surgery March 2015. So like this ball got rolling. As soon as we
Yeah.
got back here, the ball was rolling. I had my surgery. He prescribed me a medicine to take that's supposed to make you ovulate. And I was supposed to take it 3 to 7 days after I started my next period after the surgery. Well, I never did start my period.
Oh.
Literally never started. Well, okay, what's so crazy is we wound up moving back. So I live here. We moved here January. I have wound up having the surgery March 15th. I remember the day.
Hmm.
And I don't even remember why. I think something was happening with John's mom, and we needed to go back to help her with some things.
Hmm.
So we pack up and move back there. And we're there maybe, I mean, by the time we got our stuff packed up in there, we might have been there 2 weeks. So like April 14th, I think,
Hmm.
is when I was like, I haven't even had a period. Like I had my period 2 weeks before my surgery,
Hmm.
and I was supposed to have a period by now. So
Right.
I took a test, and it was super, super faint. But when you take test after test after tests for,
Yeah.
you know, years,
Yeah.
you see it. So that next morning I went and bought a first response, and sure enough, there it was. It was, I mean, dark as day. Like it was completely there. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant.
Oh, that makes me so
So
happy.
yes. So actually, you know what? I think I had my, not 2015, sorry. It was 2016
Mhm.
because LeVay was born December 2016. So
Yeah. Okay, I
cancel
got
out the year. Cancel out the year. So we got married 2012, and by March of 2016, finally, I'm pregnant. So, um, the pregnancy was good until 32 weeks. So 32 weeks come, and I wake up in a tremendous amount of pain. Like something's wrong. This is not right.
you. Uh-huh.
So I go to the hospital, and it's my gallbladder.
Oh
So
no.
they wind up scanning LeVay to make sure she's okay. They give me the steroid shots, to strengthen her lungs or whatever. And I wish I could. I'm gonna have to send you a picture. I don't know if you can add it. I know it's just us talking on there, but
Oh, I
there's a
probably
picture that
could.
there's a picture that the ultrasound guy had printed off that it looks like God's hand. Like she's looking at like she's looking at us in the ultrasound, and it looks like the hand. And when he printed it off and gave it to me, I felt the Holy Spirit, and I said, "Is that my ribs?"
Uh-huh.
Because it looked like ribs, and he was like, "No, I actually don't even know what that is. That's weird." Like, no, she's
Oh,
down here. That's down here on your belly. That's nowhere near your ribs. And when I showed John, John looked at me, and my mom was there too. This is in Louisiana. We're still living in Louisiana at this time, but my mom had come down, and
hmm.
John said, "That looks like a hand." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's God's hand. He's showing me that He's got her. Like she's gonna be okay." So
Oh,
I was so sick. So I go and I have the surgery. Everything goes great. Her heart rate never goes up, never goes down, completely fine the whole time.
oh,
Uh,
good.
I go back home, start to feel better. A few weeks go by, and I start having pain in the same area. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like infection. Even though it's been 3 weeks, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm hurting really bad.
Yeah.
So I go back to the hospital, and they check me in, and I can't even sit still. The pain is so bad. Like this is
Mm.
worse than the gallbladder was. Come to find out, I had a 6 millimeter kidney stone that was stuck that would not come out. So
Bless your
round two
heart.
for another surgery. Round two for another surgery. So they go in, that goes smoothly. They get the kidney stone out. They get me out of the recovery room or whatever up into a regular room. And I think about 45 minutes to an hour goes by, and the nurse comes in there to check on me, and I just was not feeling well, like at all. It started to feel like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I could not breathe.
Oh.
My blood pressure was actually low,
Hmm.
but my pulse was high. So she's like, get and it starts. People start coming in there like crazy, like something's
Oh,
wrong.
that's so scary.
It really was. It was super scary, but it's just, you know what? The enemy did not want LeVay to be born, and I know that now.
Hmm.
But what's so crazy is she was not affected by any of this. It was literally just me. But so they come in there, they take an X-ray of my chest, and I wound up developing ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome.
Oh, okay.
And they think at first they were trying to say that maybe I had aspirated during surgery, but because it had developed so quickly, they went back to saying that it had to have been the kidney infection because when you're pregnant, your immune system is down. It had moved to my lungs. And that only happens in immune compromised people. Like
Okay.
an infection does not spread from one organ to another like that unless you are immune compromised. So
Right.
pretty much that's what they think it is now. So my doctor, which she was amazing, Dr. Porche, I was the very first baby she delivered with when she started the practice that she started with as an OBGYN. So LeVay was the very first one. LeVay was the first picture she got to put on her little bulletin board. But
Oh,
anyways,
that's so sweet.
she really was the best. I mean, she did not leave my side through any of this. But so she comes in there and she's like, okay, we've we've got to get you on this, this, and this. So they put me on all this prescription medicine, and they're giving me all these breathing treatments. They give me 2 blood transfusions. Um, that next morning, I start to feel a little bit better. So they want me to walk around because when you have fluid on your lungs, the worst thing you can do is just stay laying down.
Yeah.
So they get me up. They have me do 2 laps. By the time I get back to the room, I sit down, and when I get back up to go pee, they had like a little potty sitting there. Like I couldn't even really, I was so weak, it was hard for me to make it to the bathroom by myself. So they sat me like one of those little hospital potties.
Yeah.
I just stood up from there just to the potty. And as soon as I got to that, I almost passed out. Like I could not breathe. So they rush in there, they do some more tests, and she's like, nope, we're air flighting you. Like something is wrong. You're not getting better. Your oxygen is now like it's tanked.
Wow.
You are declining. So they air flight me to a hospital called Ochsner in New Orleans,
Mhm.
which that hospital it's massive. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
I haven't, but that's
I
crazy.
felt like a tiny person in this place. It was so
Yeah.
big, but I'll never forget being put on the helicopter and John is like crying his eyeballs out. And he doesn't cry. I mean, he does, but it's like it's got to be like something is
Right.
happening, you know? And a guy from church had actually, I didn't know this at the time because I was so sick, but a guy from our church we were going to had actually come and brought John a $500 check because John had been missing work because I'd been so sick.
Hmm.
And that was a blessing in itself. So
That's
our bills got
awesome.
paid during all this. But I'm a sidetrack storyteller, so I'm trying to
I'm
stay
the
on
same
track.
way. It's okay.
I try to stay on track because if I don't, I'll just go on a rant a whole different direction. But anyways, they air flight me to Ochsner and they meet me on the top of the roof or whatever, and there's like 20 doctors around me. So at this point,
Wow.
and I'm out of it. They had given me, I did not want to leave John, and he had to drive there. He had to go get our dog and drive to the hospital, which was like
Mhm.
2.5 hours away. So
Wow.
they gave me some medicine to calm me down. So I was like basically out of it
Yeah.
whenever I got there. But they start forming a plan, and pretty much they're giving me all this medication. I'm on like 100% oxygen, and the next step is to intubate me. And I was like, please give me 24 hours. Like, please do not do that. Please,
Hmm.
please, please don't do that. So one of the other doctors said, okay, look, we're going to do one more blood transfusion, and we're going to do this other type of medicine that they have not tried on you yet. And if this does not work in the next 8 hours, we're going to have to like you are bad.
Wow.
So thankfully, I was not out of the woods, but it put me to where I was only needing like 85% oxygen.
Hmm.
So they drew back and they're like, okay, let's see if we can continue to go this direction. Well, long story short, I wound up being in there for 10 days, and um I was very, very, very weak when they did discharge me, but I was so much better than I was before. And I think I was 35 weeks, 36 weeks at this point. So by the time I got home from there, a week later, I went to see my doctor, Dr. Porche, and she was like, okay, before anything else crazy happens to you, we're gonna go induce you like this, like in 2 days we're inducing you. So at 37 and a half weeks, not even a half weeks, but 37 weeks and a few days, I was induced, and well, they was born. And the birth itself was pretty uneventful compared to the rest of my pregnancy. I mean, they did have to use a vacuum to
Uh,
extract her. I did get an epidural, which I'm really hoping this pregnancy I will not have to do that. But Um, other than that, I mean, she was completely perfect. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, the cutest little
oh, praise the
ever
Lord.
saw.
Yeah.
Just being able to finally hold her in my arms was just it was something else because I knew the whole time it was the enemy trying to keep me from the promise that God had given me, you know, like
Yes.
I knew she was mine. And once you see your baby and you wait, and I know there's people that have waited way more than 4 years like I did, but once you wait and you see your baby, it's like I would wait all over again just to have this baby.
Yes.
Like this baby is for me. you
Yeah,
know?
it's so pretty. I love that.
Yeah, so that's LaVey's story.
I love
There's a little bit of details here and there that I missed, but for the most part, that's her story. And I tell you what, her personality is something else. She's like the perfect mixture of me and John. It's
that.
the funniest thing, and she'll tell me what's up. Like she's got an attitude, but it's what's so funny is typically it's like she's in the right. Like I don't let her talk bad to me or anything, like
Yeah.
she can raise her voice at us, but when she knows, like she'll stand up for herself. And I tell John all the time because sometimes it aggravates him, and I'm just like, that's literally you, dude. He has a voice and he stands up for himself, and that's where she gets that from. Like it's so precious to see. But
That's so sweet.
she really is gonna be the best big sister. But okay, so let's fast forward to my miscarriage.
Hmm.
So 2019 December, which is the funniest thing. I just went to pee. I'm sitting on the toilet.
Hmm.
LaVey, she's 3 years old, you know, like just three. Her birthday's December 13th. So she had
Yes.
just turned 3 years old. And she just nonchalantly looks at me and she was like, "There's a baby in your belly."
Oh,
I look at her and I'm like, "Excuse me?" Because I'm sure she had seen on some cartoons here and there, but we,
yeah.
we had never, it's not like I was talking with her about
Right.
us trying or anything, which we really weren't trying. We weren't preventing it
Right.
again, but we weren't trying. So I'm like, that's strange. So of course I called John and I'm like, when you get off work, I need you to stop and get a pregnancy test because your daughter just said that I'm pregnant or that there's a baby in my belly.
I love
So
that.
he does. He does. And sure enough, I take it and it's positive. So I'm like, well, okay then. That's crazy because in my head, I had to go through all this stuff to get pregnant before.
Yeah.
So how am I pregnant now? Like because my endometriosis had come back
Hmm.
full force, which that happens a lot. You're healed when you're pregnant, but a lot of times it comes back with a vengeance after
Right.
you have a baby. So it was a complete shock for me. Um, so I go to the doctor, they confirm it. Um, I want to say, yeah, it was at AOG. Um, they won't do an ultrasound until you're 8 to 10 weeks, I think. And so at the 10-week mark is when my appointment wound up being, so February.
I saw that
And
as I have five, and so from like the second child to the next or the third to the next, they stopped doing them at like 5 weeks, and then that's kind of scary for women to. It feels like to me to go so long without being able to know if
I
everything's okay. You
know
know.
it really does. It does. But I feel like, see, because with LeVay, I had a little bit of a scare at the very beginning of her pregnancy. I was bleeding after I knew I was pregnant, and the ultrasound at the hospital, they couldn't find a heartbeat, but I was only 5 weeks. And when I went to my doctor, they did find one. So I think that's why they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
But still, like you said, it's unnerving to be like, okay, well, I just want to see the baby in there. Like, can you please not make me wait a whole month and a half, you know?
Yeah.
But so so I went to that appointment. LeVay and John went with me because we knew we were going to see the baby on the screen.
Oh.
And for some reason, I'm not even sure why they even did the Doppler because they knew that I was about to have an ultrasound. But they brought you into the room, they go over all the questions and how it is when you're first finding out and all that.
Yeah.
And she did the Doppler and she didn't act concerned, I guess because I was so early. But she was like, "Let's go ahead and just jump on over here and go ahead and get that ultrasound started." I couldn't find the baby, but it's probably because you're so early. So in my head, like, no worries. Like I'm not thinking anything negative at all. And so, me, John, and LeVay go in there, and they go to do the ultrasound, and immediately, like when I saw the baby, I knew something was wrong
Oh.
because I remembered seeing LeVay and I remembered seeing that little flicker.
Hmm.
And so my face starts getting hot and I'm starting to I'm like waiting on her to say something and she's
Yeah.
still, but I know they have to make sure. So she's going over and over. Well, then she's like, "I'll be right back." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I need you to tell me, what's wrong with my baby?" And she was
Yeah.
like, "I'll be right back."
Oh,
And
no.
so when she did that, I knew. I was like, "Yeah, something is wrong." So she goes and gets I guess because she's just the ultrasound tech, she goes and gets another doctor, and they come in there and they scan me again, and they both were like, "I'm so sorry, but there's not a heartbeat, and the baby's only measuring about 8 weeks." So it had stopped growing, and pretty much that was it. 2 weeks before that, and I had no clue.
Mhm.
Which was, looking back now, I had zero symptoms with this pregnancy, like none at
Wow.
all. No sickness, nothing. And that should have been a clue in my mind, but I guess I just wasn't. I don't know. I guess I just didn't think about having a miscarriage. And so I remember LeVay, um, it was such a God moment because she put her little hand on my shoulder because we went back to the room to wait on another doctor to come in there and kind of, because they wanted to know if I wanted to do a DNC or whatever. And she put her little hand on my shoulder and she said, "It's going to be okay, Mama. It's
Aw.
going to be okay." And I'll never forget her saying that because in that moment, I felt like she was the only calm one in the room.
Uh,
And here she is, a 3-year-old, and she's like, she has peace about her. And so I don't know, like, that gave me peace in that moment. Like, it's going to be okay. So with that, um, I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but with miscarriage, I feel like I know it's different for everybody, but with me, it really didn't hit me for a while. And I'm talking like months
wow.
and months. And I think really what struck me is the thought of, what if I don't ever get pregnant again? And that was my one chance to give LeVay a sibling.
Yeah.
And because she started to ask, "Mommy, when are you going to have a brother? When am I going to have a brother and sister?" The older she got, the more she'd
Yeah.
ask about it. And so I want to say it was close to a year that I really allowed myself to grieve that loss. And I think it's because I lost it so early too. There's like a stigma around that. Like,
Mhm.
if you miscarry early, it's not as big of a deal, which, I mean, obviously you have a stillborn baby, that's a little bit different,
Yeah.
but you still are losing a child that was yours. And so I don't think I allowed myself to grieve at first.
Yeah.
So I did finally allow myself to grieve, and I actually went to, this is the beginning. What time are we at right now? Just curious.
Oh,
How
I have 9:30 is how much we have left on this one.
Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start.
I know I get excited too, and then I'm like, I've been here for 2 hours.
Right. But what's so crazy is the healing that God brought me with my miscarriage is actually what led to this pregnancy.
Oh,
So
that's
I went
beautiful.
to a woman's, it's called a Rise and Shine Women's Summit, but it's like a women's conference. Um, and there's this lady, that a speaker that was there. Her name's Danielle Helmer, and she wrote a book called "There's Room in Your Womb." And she is 36. She's just now finally engaged. This is a year later she's engaged, but she's always wanted kids, but she's had endometriosis, and her fertility's been attacked. And but she wrote this book not only for people that are longing for physical babies and are dealing with infertility and miscarriages, but also just, there's room in your womb. There's room for God to birth the promises that He's given you.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
so she's speaking, and I go up, and she actually lays her hands on me and prays over me. And when she did that, I felt like all that I had buried just come to the surface, and I gave it to God. And for a moment it hurt. It was like God allowed me to feel all that pain
Mhm.
for a second, but then He washed it away, and I felt joy and hope and peace replace all of that. And I actually let it go. But I let go, not only the grief and the sorrow from losing my baby, I let go the fear of not giving LeVay a sibling. And I remember that moment just thanking Him for LeVay. Lord, if you don't ever give me another child again, thank you for the baby that I have here on earth, and I have a baby in heaven.
Oh.
Like, I get to see this baby in heaven one day. I may not get to see him or her here, but I get to see them in heaven. And I felt so much peace. And I bought her book and I read her book, and I started speaking life over my womb,
Mhm.
but not just because I still believe that God could give me another baby, but I was okay if he didn't. But I also started speaking life over the family members that am still praying for that are not saved, for friends that are still not saved. Like, this book has literally changed my life. Like, it really has. So, I'm going through all the steps in this book, and I'm speaking life into myself and into my family and into my friends. And this was June of last year. So fast forward to August, and that's when I found out I'm pregnant again.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm trying not to cry. I'm holding back the tears, but that is beautiful.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. And it was another day that just, I don't know. I had an inkling this time. Well, they didn't say anything to me this time. It wasn't like that. But me, I had a feeling, and I wasn't even really late for my period. Like, I was just late, and I had been way late, way more late than I had at this point. But I told John to bring 2 pregnancy tests home, and he was like, whatever, okay, because you know, when you deal with somebody that takes pregnancy test after pregnancy test, he's
Uh,
like, okay, whatever, I'll bring them to you.
we've done that.
And
I understand.
he literally walks out to go. He goes hunting behind our house all the time, but he walks out to go hunting, and I run out here, and I'm like, John, because I knew he couldn't be too far. And he runs back. He thought something was wrong, and I'm just crying. He's like, "What's wrong?" He thought somebody did got hurt. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, no, you're not. Shut up. And I'm like, yes, I am. And I like threw the test at him, and he caught it, and he looks at it. And so he starts crying, and well, they think something is wrong. And at
Mhm.
first I was going to wait to tell her. And I was like, I have to tell her now. She's going to think something's wrong with mommy and daddy.
Oh,
So I told her, and all three of us are just standing here in my front yard, just crying happy tears.
wow.
So, and this baby, I don't know how long we have until this one cuts off, but
5 minutes.
this, okay. This baby is completely healthy. She is measuring right on track. I have been, I had morning sickness in the beginning, but other than that, I mean, night and day compared to how I felt with LeVay, and even her just being just completely healthy. Like, God is in this, and he actually used somebody to speak over me at the
Yeah.
beginning of my pregnancy to say, you're not going to have a battle like you did with LeVay, and you're not going to lose this baby. And whenever they said that to me, it like I felt the Holy Spirit. And
That's
so he's
awesome.
actually given me peace. Like, he's not only given me this baby, he's allowed me to have peace and to not have fear and to not have worry over not only my life,
Mhm.
because that is traumatizing. I almost died,
Yeah.
but the life of my baby. And so I give him all the glory and all the praise, and I will just never be able to thank him enough for the family I have. And my hopes in sharing my story is that somebody out there that does feel like that they're out of hope, and even if God doesn't physically give them a baby, there are people that I met at this women's conference that have adopted, that have um even fostered to adopt. Like, there are so many ways to have a family, and they are beautiful. There's
Yeah.
there's just so many different ways that God opens up doors for us. And I want people to just remember to seek out what his will for you is, because even though my will for my life wouldn't have been what happened, looking back, it's everything that I needed, not only for me to have joy and peace, but to grow me into who he needs me to be, so
Yes.
that I can help other people.
That is awesome.
Yes, I guess that's it. I mean, I really can't think of anything else to add to the birth side of things. I'm excited to see how this birth goes now that I plan on not using an epidural. So if you have any advice you can give me on that later.
Well, I definitely I had two of my natural out of the five, and I would do it every time if I could, if I had more. We're not having any more, but definitely just being in control of your body is really empowering, and no judgment
Yes,
if someone decides to use an epidural, because I have also, but for me, I don't like needles, so I already was terrified, and so being
yes,
able to kind of direct my body by feeling what's going on, I was able to help the baby come down, able to guide it to where it needs to be. So it was much quicker. And then my healing process was just a lot
Right.
easier.
You're
So,
not laid up in a bed for hours after having your baby. You can
yeah,
get up and move around.
right.
Which, like you said, I had an epidural, so I know.
Yeah.
But
And then I have my one of my best friends, Ashley. I have her story. I just talked to her a couple days ago. She had an epidural with her first, and then she had hers natural. And her story, you might like it because she kind of, was okay with whatever. And then she's just like, I'm not going to do it. And so she had natural, and her third was so quick. And so a lot of the times you see that too is that if you decide to go natural, your body's like, okay, we're ready to go, and the baby's here quicker than what we expect. So,
right.
but
Yes.
yeah, I'll send you any information. I love birth and talking about it, and I love
Okay.
hearing your story, and I know I was blessed by hearing your story, and I know that someone in the same position is going to be blessed by hearing it too.
Well, thank you. That's all I can hope for. And just to be an encourager that even if it looks like God is not working in your life, he most definitely is. And it may not be what you think it's going to be, but it's going to be exactly what you need.
Oh, it's beautiful because he molds us to where he wants us to be, not necessarily what we envision. And so I love
Yes.
that so much. I was like, don't cry like a baby. You have to talk. It's just beautiful. I want to thank you so much for jumping on with me tonight. And I'm so excited for others to hear you about your story. And I hope you have an awesome evening, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Bye.
Girl.